Today on Nova Legends podcast, I have South Lake softball coach Casey Schieda, whose Seahawks are headed to the state semifinals after a quarterfinal win against a powerhouse Lake Braddock team. Coach, congratulations and thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
No, of course. Well, let me give your bio. You're pretty young, but you're already building an extensive bio here. You went to Stockton University. That's California, right, Coach?
New Jersey.
Oh, New Jersey. Oh, are you from New Jersey?
Yeah, originally Long Island, New York, then moved to Jersey, and now Virginia.
Oh, I don't hear an accent, Jersey or Long Island. Anyway, you were a math major at Stockton. You were magna cum laude. That's pretty incredible. Math is not easy. I got knocked out in Calc 3 in college. But you're a 4-year starter on the softball team. You teach math and you're an intervention specialist in math as well at South Lakes. And you've been coaching there, I think, since 2019. Coach, I got most of that right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. What did I get wrong? Anything?
Nope, nothing. You're all good.
Oh, usually I get something wrong. So, well, look, before we get into softball and your team, remember, I don't know much about softball, so there truly are stupid questions in this world. But where is softball now? Now, my mother, who I never knew of watching softball, was watching the college softball game on TV the other day. She called me and told me about it. Softball seems to be in a really good place right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have the SEC powerhouses, you have the Oklahomas of the world who have really put college softball on the map. Now you see a lot more college softball games on national television at, prime time. The first College World Series game was at 8 o'clock last night with Oklahoma and Texas. So it's definitely taken off. Softball's back in the Olympics. We have the professional program that's, kind of had its revival. So softball's definitely making a comeback. And I think it's helping young athletes all the way from, 8U softball through collegiate athletes kind of find that passion and find those role models that they can look up to.
Yeah. Well, Coach, is softball like baseball in that you have the $500 bats and you have the personal training, all the coaches and stuff, and it can be very, very expensive on young families, players. Is it like baseball in that regard?
Yes, definitely. It is not it's not a cheap sport. So you have the expensive bats, the hitting lessons, the pitching lessons, strength and conditioning. So it is a full year commitment, both time wise and for the parents' wallets.
Is it possible for a great athlete who's never played softball to all of a sudden take a unit during PE and like it, and all of a sudden come out? Is there time to train that person to be a good softball player, or all the things you just talked about, all the lessons and stuff, it's probably too late by then?
I think absolutely anybody could pick it up. I mean, if you have good hand-eye coordination, if you're an overall athlete, we always like to tell our girls, play field hockey, do track, do basketball, do other things that are using those other muscles, but still practice your agility, your hand-eye coordination. And I think if you're an overall athlete and you have the heart and determination, that you can definitely pick up softball. And you can, as long as you work hard, you can definitely make a name for yourself in the sport.
Yeah. How about as a coach? Do you coach other sports at South Lakes?
No, just softball.
Now I would think being a math teacher would be extremely challenging in terms of your time, preparation, grading and stuff. I would think other subjects that you may teach, like, I interview coaches all the time. Lots of driver's ed teachers who coach historically. Nowadays, coaches aren't even in the building, but historically there were subjects that were a little bit less time intensive. PE might not be as many late night hours and stuff. Do you find a conflict between teaching math and coaching?
Actually don't. I find a nice marriage between the two, because now with Game Changer and all the data analytics, that is definitely where I, like to lean into on the math side and use it for softball. So we look at spray charts. We look at, the amount of strikeouts teams have looking versus swinging. Are they swinging first pitch? So I like to bring my math background into softball. And I try to get most of my prep work done over the summer and then before February, so that come February through June, I'm able to lock in to Seahawks softball.
Yeah, and then in the Moneyball stuff that we see in baseball, my favorite sports movie, is that affected softball in the exact same way or in a different way?
I definitely think it's had an impact. You see a lot of, even when you're just watching the college games, you see a lot of the statistics pop up about exit velocity or spin rate. And then, everybody's always talked about speed when it comes to pitching, but now a lot of people talk about how that speed as the pitch comes in affects batters' exit velocity. And I think you start to see more power hitters as opposed to the traditional lefty slappers or, small ball. It's still there, but I think the numbers tell you that if you have, strong bats in your lineup, you want to put them at the top of the order and you want to get as many home runs and RBIs as you can.
Yeah. Well, how about, and this is when we get to the softball 101 questions. Yeah, pitching in softball as it relates to pitching in baseball. Pitchers are very dominant in baseball. When I played adult softball, I obviously had slow pitch, so it's more of a hitter's game. Where is the pitcher in terms of softball, and how often I know you have an all region pitcher, Gracie De La Cruz, who's only a junior. How often can you pitch play your top pitcher?
So in softball, you don't have that pitch count. You don't have that restriction in baseball just because of the arm movement. You're going with gravity. It's not as strenuous, but it is still taxing. So definitely we like to save Gracie's arm as much as possible, but that kid is a workhorse, and when we give her the nod, she's like, I got it. And she always wants the ball. She always wants to go out there and she wants to pitch and she wants to be in the circle for her team. So we definitely try to monitor pitch count, but you do have a little bit more leeway with softball pitchers. They can go back to back. They can go, into double headers pitching, whereas baseball, you don't have that flexibility as much.
Okay. So of your 27 games this year, how many games did Gracie pitch?
The majority of them. We do have 3 other pitchers on staff, but Gracie usually gets the call.
Right. And is relief pitching a thing in softball?
Yeah, definitely to an extent. We have Megan McGuire, who she'll come in 5th, 6th, 7th inning.
She's your first baseman.
Yes, first baseman. Yep. So usually her and Gracie will switch. Megan will come in and pitch. Gracie goes to first base. So we definitely do use Megan as a relief pitcher, but she'll also start some games as well.
Yeah, and in baseball, is it very important, which side of the plate they're in. So if you have a left-hand batter coming up, and you may go with a left-hand pitcher instead. Do you have that in softball as well?
I mean, you definitely do have those matchups, but I think at least for our team, we just try to look at pitch location and pitch calling as opposed to lefty versus righty or righty versus righty. So we'll just work the zone more as opposed to putting in a different arm. And all of our pitchers are righty, so.
Okay. So now do you scout a team in softball, or do you just go with statistics if you can find them? Like you're playing Osbourn Park, I believe, this weekend, Friday, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you scout in softball, or do you just try to get your hands on some statistics?
Any games that we can scout, we do like to, but unfortunately in the high school season, everybody pretty much plays the same day. So we don't have that flexibility. So you rely on the statistics or how they faced against other teams that you played, those common opponents. Just try to look at the stats and see what you can. But at this stage of the game, everybody's good. That's how everybody got into state. So you just got to make sure your team is prepared, ready to go and face who's ever on the other side of the field.
Yeah. Well, there's softball games aren't loaded on the NHFS like other sports, right? You can't just go watch replays like you can in other sports.
I know at least for South Lakes, we have the issue with the Wi-Fi not getting all the way out to our field. So we rely on Game Changer to do our live streaming.
Okay. So other teams could watch you guys play online if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So the information is out there. Well, how about one thing that strikes me about you is you weren't an assistant coach for long, if ever. Maybe you did some in college. You became a head coach, I think, almost right away when you started at South Lakes. How did you learn how to become a head coach? You got to deal with parents. You got to deal with assistant coaches. You got to deal with JV. You got to deal with everything. And you're trying to learn how to teach at the same time. How were you able to make that transition?
I always knew I wanted to be a coach. As soon as my, last game of my college career ended, I knew that, this wasn't the end of me in softball. So I applied as soon as I started working here, and I got the JV head coaching position. I did that for 2 years. And then, I was grateful to have the varsity head coaching position for the past 3 years. So I think it really helped being the JV head coach, kind of looking at it as a whole program, knowing that the JV girls are, you know, preparing to move up to that varsity team, and you want to make sure your whole program has the same expectations. Everybody's doing practice the same way. Are there going to be some differences based off of who they're playing and, you know, what happened in the previous games? Absolutely. But you want the foundation of the program to be the same so that the expectations don't change once those girls move up to varsity. And then as far as, you know, working with parents and the administrative role, I've heard a lot from playing travel and playing college of like the do's and don'ts, what works, what doesn't work. So that I just kind of do on the fly.
But yeah, if you could figure that out, you got to share with all the other coaches in the universe. That's always going to be tricky. If you had to think about the coaches who've been most influential to you, one, A, as a player, B, as a coach, who would that coach or coaches be?
So I have two that come to mind. The first one would be my travel coach growing up. His name is John Schaefer. I started playing for him when I was 10 or 11 years old, and I played on his travel team all the way through 18U, our gold team, and then even our 23U team. And I have made some of the best life memories. A lot of the girls I played with are bridesmaids in my wedding, so we've made lifelong friendships. But Coach John definitely just molded me as a player and also taught me a lot of things that I use today as a coach, and I still keep in contact with him. And then the second one would be my dad. He's been my assistant coach since I started at South Lakes, and he's made me the player that I am, but he's also helped me on the coaching piece of it. And it's really cool working with him and getting to share these experiences with him, because we had them as a player and a coach, and now to have them as two coaches, it's really special, and it's something that I really cherish.
So your parents moved down here from New Jersey as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay, but you didn't go to any high school in the Fairfax County area yourself?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. So let's talk a little bit about your team. Now, you've been incredibly consistent the last few years. As a matter of fact, you won 16 games last year and you only lost 7. It was a really good season. When I went through your games, it just seems like there's a couple teams that you really struggle with, McLean being one, and of course Madison lost a region and districts to them, and also in the regular season. Doesn't matter, we're still alive. But when you think about your team last year and your team this year, did you think you'd be alive in the postseason, or did you think you had a good opportunity to be alive in the postseason?
Yes, definitely. Every year I feel like we have girls that show up every day and want to compete. This year I feel like we had a lot of younger players step up and kind of take charge and take off in their positions, both offensively and defensively. And I think this year, this team has grown the most. We definitely played a stronger schedule in the beginning of the year. That was done intentionally by me so that we see that better competition, so we're ready for the postseason. But this team has grown and they've really played together, and they have some of the best chemistry that I've seen on a team. So I'm very proud of them, but I can't tell you I'm surprised, because I know that this is a special group of girls, and I'm ready to take them to the state semifinals and, you know, eventually the championship.
Yeah. Do you think it's an advantage to have lost some games, to go there's a girls team in the soccer that's live, Woodson? I think they were 3-9 in the regular season, and they're in the state semifinals. I went to Robinson. They lost to Robinson 9-2 in the regular season. That's a huge score in soccer. They beat them 4-0 in the postseason. It's the biggest transformation I've ever seen in sports, as long as I've been following it. As a coach, are you fine with a record that was slightly above 500? Do you think it makes you ready for the postseason? You've lost some games. You've been in close games. You've had to come back.
Definitely. I think that you know, it's easy for the team that's kind of coasted all year and, you know, they know what it's like to win. But I think come postseason, there's a lot of pressure on that team because it's like, well, we can't lose now. So with us, I mean, not that I ever wanted to lose, but losing some of those games, it teaches you to pull your bootstraps up. You got to bounce back and you got, you know, a game either the next day or in 2 games. And it kind of teaches you to have that resilience and to have that grit and determination to know like we can lose and we can still come back, or we can be down and we can come back in a game. So to have that no quit, just gritty attitude, I definitely think has helped us get this far in the postseason.
Yeah. Well, Coach, what makes Madison so good? They're great in baseball, girls basketball, football. What makes them so good? Is softball like other sports in that if you have a good feeder youth program locally, it helps, and then the tradition of the school, maybe at schools, if you have a good high school program, girls that play club softball will definitely come out and play on the team. What makes a successful program, and why is Madison so good?
I mean, I think all of those things have a factor. I know the Vienna Girls Softball League is a very strong feeder program. And you know, having success previously helps to have girls want to come out and want to compete. So they're always a tough competitor every year. We're looking to get that win against them. But yeah, they are always someone that we definitely have to prepare for. And they have a lot of players that play outside of just high school softball, that play travel, and you know, are just competitive, but our time is coming against them. So
Yeah. Well, Coach, is travel club in high school? What's the relationship in softball? Like, for example, in soccer, probably the travel team means a little bit more for elite players. For everyone else, high school probably means more. It also depends on what school you go to. What's the relationship in high school softball or in softball?
So I think travel softball is definitely where you see a lot of the college recruiting coming from. So you'll see those, you know, those players you may face in high school, you'll see them either on your travel team or on opposing travel teams. So you're definitely playing at a high level in travel if you're looking to play in those college showcases. And I just think seeing that high level offense, defense, and pitching helps prepare you for the high school season. Unfortunately, the high school season is such a short period of time. A lot of the reps and a lot of live pitching out of season does happen in those travel programs. So we always encourage our players, like, make sure you're playing travel, make sure you're playing high level, you know, 18U travel so that you're prepared for the high school season. Because once we get to this point in the year, usually the pitching and the offense you're facing is high level and it can compete with those elite travel teams. So you want to be preparing for that year round, not just February through June.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You're encouraging it, and you monitor it and make sure they're maximizing it. Whereas in soccer, it seems to be a conflict always. What about South Lake? So what makes South Lake so great? I mean, they won the state in basketball, football. They had an incredible year, undefeated, won the district out of nowhere. I've seen some track and field notices. In terms of softball, what do you think the potential is at South Lakes?
I mean, I always think every year we can win districts, regions, and states. So I think the community that we have in Reston helps make the school and the teams and the programs just have that sense of pride to want to play for South Lakes, and they want to have Seahawks across their chest and they want to put that jersey on. And I just think that, you know, even today we're going to have the parents put together a baseball, softball send off before we go to state. So that community pride and school pride, I think, just helps propel our players to want to succeed and want to do well. And you know, South Lakes does have that winning culture. We had the basketball team, as you mentioned, win states. So now I think every other sports team is hungry to get that same title and get that same recognition.
Yeah, I understand. My good friend, Principal Retzer, if you don't win the state championship, it's almost like, should you really be coaching here at South Lakes? I mean, she runs a tight ship over there. So, well, let's talk a little bit about the Lake Braddock win. Now, Lake Braddock was coming off games when they'd outscored their opponents 37-3. And then you guys shut them out and beat them 2-0. What did you think going into the game about that matchup, that state quarterfinal matchup? Those numbers had to be a little bit imposing, but were you confident you can shut them out and win a defensive battle like you did?
Definitely. You know, going back to the scouting piece, I was looking at their scores and they definitely scored a lot of runs, but I kept saying to our girls, they haven't faced us yet, right? So any given day, it's anybody's game. So I think Gracie came out pitching. She came out strong. She was able to keep them off balance. A team that scores, like you mentioned, 8 runs a game, they scored none. She threw a 2-hit shutout. And then offensively, we just were attacking their pitches, and we were making sure that we were keeping their defense on their toes. We weren't letting them get those strikeouts to just kind of sit back. So we challenged their defense, and in the top of the 7th, the bottom of our lineup just came alive, and we scored, and we never looked back. Gracie shut them down in the bottom of the 7th, and we were able to walk away with the victory.
Yeah. Coach, this is your first time as a coach in the state tournament?
Yes, first time. South Lake softball has been in the state tournament.
How did you feel when you realized the moment in baseball? It's never over to the last out. It's not like the time can't run out in baseball. Baseball is like tennis. You got to get that last out. So you never know it until it happens. Baseball, softball is like tennis. Excuse me, coach. What was the feeling when that last out? Or maybe it was a walk-off. I don't remember. But what was that feeling when you knew you had qualified for the state tournament?
Yeah, when we got that last out, it was just pure joy. I was just so happy for the girls. I knew that this is something they worked so hard for. This is the first South Lake softball team to go to the state tournament and then to win the first state game. I'm just so proud of them. And everybody was jumping up and down. We were hugging. So it was that just relief and excitement that we still get to play another day. And I can't tell you how proud I am of this group of girls.
Yeah. It sometimes makes the seniors' life a little bit complicated. They got prom, they got graduation, and they're still playing softball in June, but it's got to be an amazing. This is probably going to be one of the best months of their lives, especially if you can keep the dream alive. So coach, as a player, did you win a state championship at New Jersey?
Not state championship, no. Won our conference tournament, so similar to a district or a region tournament, but not state. So
what do you think as a coach and as a player? And I know it's one game at a time. You got to play state semifinal, then you got to go to state final. But what do you think winning a state title, or even being in a state title game, would mean to you and your players?
I mean, it would mean the world. These girls have worked so hard, and to get that into that state title game, I think would be incredible, but to win it would be even more incredible. Unfortunately, South Lake softball is yet to put a title up on the wall in the gym. So if the first one that goes up there is a state title, I think everybody would be more than ecstatic to have.
First time ever in this history of the program?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, no districts like 20 years ago or anything?
Mm.
Oh, that is incredible.
We're knocking on the door every year, though. But
that's exciting. Well, it's even better than I knew. Well, Coach, let's talk a little bit before we get to your players, and we talked about Gracie and Megan McGuire. Let's talk about Osbourn Park. Now, you gave us your game plan against Lake Braddock. That seemed like a pretty good game plan for anybody, the way you described it. But will your game plan be radically different for Osbourn Park than it was against Lake Braddock?
I don't think so. I mean, I can't spill all my secrets, but but no, I think the attitude stays the same. Like we say, we have to show up and we have to play Seahawks softball no matter who we're playing against. So they're going to be a good opponent. They've made it just as far as we have, but we're ready to come in there and take a win and advance to Saturday.
That's awesome, Coach. So, all right, quickly about your team. We talked about Gracie, the junior pitcher, Megan McGuire, super sophomore first baseman. Addie Heath, outfielder, made second team all region as well. Tell me a little bit more about your team.
Yeah, so we have we have some great senior leadership. Audrey's behind the plate. She does a great job working with Gracie, making sure that she's taking control of the infield and calling time when everybody just needs to kind of settle down and regroup. Addie's our senior center fielder. She does the same thing in the outfield. Works really hard with our junior right fielder Lindsay, and then sophomore left fielder Fiona, just to take command of that outfield. We have Kayla Rudolph and Cass Delacruz playing third and short for us, who have Kayla's a sophomore and Cass is a freshman who's Gracie's sister. And then we have Izzy Stinchcomb at second base. So they take control of the corners along with Megan at first, and then our middle infield, just making sure that if we do make a mistake, we just kind of, our motto is, so what? Who wants the next play? And making sure we're picking each other up. And if we do make a mistake in the field, someone picks it up at bat. So it was really nice to have Cass lead off with that double in the top of the seventh. Then Izzy came over, sack bunted her over to third, and then Fiona hit a triple to score her. And then Kayla hit a single to score Fiona from third. So it was really nice to see basically the whole team 1 through 9 offensively and defensively just come alive in that Lake Braddock game.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. I mean, I can only imagine being on the way. Like my son, listeners will probably tired of me telling the story, but I remember when my son qualified for the state semifinals and then the state final. One of the most amazing moments of my life in soccer. So it's just I have a sense, and my sister once stayed at Robinson in basketball. So I have a sense of what you're going through, but I've never even come close to that as an athlete. So anyway, I'm definitely cheering for you. Last question, Coach. You had an incredible start to your coaching career. You always see yourself as a teacher and a coach, or do you think one day you might coach college and be a full-time coach?
I've thought about it. I definitely know that later down the line, I definitely want to coach my own kids, in whatever sport that may be. I'm going to push for my daughter, to play softball, but whatever my, future kids do want to play, I do definitely see myself coaching them. Yeah, and if a college opportunity came along and the timing was right, I definitely throw my name in the hat. But right now I'm loving coaching at South Lakes and I'm loving working with these girls. So I'm very happy where I am.
Yeah. I think your friend Coach Desmond is going to try to push for basketball to be in that crib and make sure that you're raising some proper basketball at South Lakes athletes. Anyway,
hey, basketball and softball aren't the same season, so they can do both.
That's right. And the parents, it's all free. It doesn't
exactly.
It's like softball. Travel basketball is practically free these days. So I have a couple of friends whose kids are two-sport athletes, and it's so rare these days to have a kid make all district in 2 sports. When the kids do that, I just love it. I just think they're so much better off being able to compete in many contexts as possible. But anyway, Coach, look, I'll be following. Where can we watch the game so people who are listening can tune in?
So we will be live streaming it on our Game Changer. So if you just look up South Lakes Seahawks varsity softball, we'll be live streaming the games through the app.
And the semifinals is scheduled for what time, Coach?
10 a.m. tomorrow.
10 a.m. tomorrow. And then, not getting ahead of ourselves, but should you qualify for the final, what time would that game be? 11
a.m. on Saturday.
Oh, right back to back.
Yep.
Yeah. And the game's going to be in Richmond, or is it going to?
In Richmond, yeah, or it's at Deep Run High School, I believe, in Glen Allen, Virginia.
Oh, I'll be down there for the soccer. Maybe I'll be able to sneak in and watch a game.
Yeah.
So I will do my best. I'll be down there watching the states in soccer, and I don't think we played till 11:30. But anyway, Coach, again, I know you're busy. Thanks again for doing this. Hopefully, one day you can come on and talk more about softball, and I'll promise you I'll study up and not make as many mistakes as I made today.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me, and go Seahawks.
Yeah, go Seahawks. Take care, Coach. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.